Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, the Sharks shockingly named David Quinn the head coach. So we're going to get into his press conference and media availability and talk about kind of his plan and what he sees for the Sharks. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fit and San Jose Hockey Now. And of course, I want to thank you for making us your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube. So the big news, of course, is David Quinn officially named the Sharks head coach today, the 10th head coach in the franchise's history. And, of course, he had his introductory press conference and, the press was all there, and I myself was able to listen in on the Zoom call and ask a question as well. And kind of my first takeaway from him or from the press conference is him and Mike Grier are on the same page, right? They both talked about, we saw with Mike Grier, one of the first things he said is he wants a hard, fast, tenacious, in-your-face team. And that was literally the first words that came out of David Quinn's mouth, was the same thing where, he wants a fast team that's tough to play against. We've heard the spiel already several times from the Sharks brass, but, they talked about like how they kind of, coming from the same, coming from BU, and they kind of have they've known each other for a long time. They've talked hockey for a long time, and, they definitely on the same page. And, I was very, very skeptical on David Quinn, the X's and O's and all that stuff. But at least with it, these two guys are going to be on the same page and they're going to see things the same way. And there's nothing worse, not in hockey, but not just in hockey, but in any sport where the GM and the coach don't get along and there's that power struggle and that dynamic of who sees, the GM wants to run the team one way and the coach wants to run the team the other way. And I think we're not going to have to worry about that. Not that we saw that before with the Sharks or anything like that, but you're always a little hesitant when, new guys come in, especially when the new GM comes in. And this could have been an issue, especially if Bob Boughner was there, where, again, Bob Boughner would not have been Mike Grier's guy. And David Quinn, for all of his faults and what he did well and didn't do well, he's going to be Mike Grier's guy. And they're going to work together to make sure that they're on the same page when it comes to building the roster and making sure, that they're trying to build a winner out of what has been the wreckage of the Sharks over the past couple of seasons. So I really like that. And we saw too, where Mike Grier stood up for David Quinn. Shang was asking about, kind of his, David's or Coach Quinn's experiences with playing young guys and, where he kind of had a reputation where he didn't like rookies and didn't like young guys. And, David Quinn, he said a couple of words and then Mike Grier just kind of jumped right into it to defend him. And, he's not letting him kind of be out there on out there on an island by himself. And, that I like to see that, especially where you're trying to kind of turn the page on what's been a very successful. I mean, Doug Wilson definitely is, had his flaws and stuff like that. But for, the 20 years of Doug Wilson being the GM, the Sharks were one of the winniest teams during that time. And if the only thing they didn't have was a Stanley Cup, and, going into a new era, I think Mike Grier, definitely a lot of questions about the roster building and some of the moves that he's made. And, I think he's done a lot of good stuff. And I think some stuff I'm still, but he has a plan and it seems like he's sticking to it. I wrote an article on the Fear the Fin that you can go check out where it's, his plan is going to be depth and competition over everything else throughout the entire organization. Like, and we heard that with David Quinn today, especially when it comes to younger players, where they have to earn that role. And, there's plenty of, debate about how much should be given to them and how much should be earned, especially when it comes to your young players like William Eklund and Bordeleau and, Robbins and Weisblatt and all these guys who are expected to kind of be your next group of guys. But of that, how much do they need to earn versus how much should be given to them off the bat? And, we'll have plenty of time all summer to kind of dig into what the roster should look like or will look like on opening night and what type of role these guys will play. But, Mike Grier has made it pretty known that he's going to, these guys are going to have to earn it. And, nothing's going to be given to them guys and these guys. And if these AHL guys, if they want to make it on the Sharks, it's not like the days of yore where you're having to beat out Lean Bergman and Daniel Yurtakin, poor guys. I keep, harping on them, but you're going to have to earn it and beat NHL caliber players to make an NHL team. So will the Sharks be better this year? Probably not, but you can see the plan in place. So before continuing and kind of dig into more of David Quinn's press conference and kind of my takeaways, and we got some news and notes we're going to cover as well. I want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wager information. From live in-game betting, sport scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. So head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so, Quinn, he talked about, his time with the Rangers and, stuff that he learned from that. I think the biggest, thing when we talked about John Chick, he talked to, he specifically mentioned like the micromanaging, and Quinn talked about that today, where it's something he wants to try to work on, and learning when guys need to kind of be pushed and when you need to kind of back off guys, and that's good. And Grier also talked about how coaches are typically better on their second go around. Dakota is making her point well known too. That coaches are usually a lot better on their second go around. And I think that's the hope that he has. And, the Rangers, we talked about with John Chick on Saturday's episode, how, they were the youngest team in the league. They had, they did have some issues with, with the Panarin thing. And then you had the whole Tom Wilson thing. And, he's the coach and he's going to have to work with it. I think he's going to learn from that stuff. And, like I said, I think him kind of recognizing of the stuff that he needs to work on, and realizing that going forward. And that was going to be the question I was going to ask him was, what is the biggest thing you learned? And he kind of, Curtis Pashelka asked him that, and that was his answer was, he said he before he kind of lost himself, and he wants to try to kind of stick more to kind of be more true to himself. And, it's such a collaborative job, right? Where you're taking information from the scouts, you're taking information from the AHL coaches, you're taking information from, so many different sources and trying to balance it all. And he said that he felt like he kind of lost his way at the end of it. It's easy for us, and I'm very, done this myself a bajillion times too. It's like, oh, why did he make that decision? That's dumb. Why is he starting that guy instead of not playing this guy? Or why is this guy? And we as fans, we don't see what's going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. And I think for him, he said that was one of the things he wanted to work on, was being kind of more true to himself and being. Sorry, Dakota's again trying to make her presence felt. The real host of the show, but being himself and kind of being true to himself and what David Quinn hockey is, and we talked. He said his time in New York didn't go the way he wanted to, and it clearly didn't. He was fired from his job, and as much as we're skeptical about what David Quinn brings and stuff, but you still don't become a coach in the NHL without finding success and doing, he was successful on every level until he got to the NHL. So again, I want to see the staff. We'll get into his staff here in a little bit. I want to see the staff that he brings. And I think having a potential AHL coach who knows really well how to kind of work with these kind of NHL, AHL kind of tweener guys and, get them ready for the NHL, and someone who's been successful, I think would be a really, really positive thing for him, where he can kind of, utilize those roles and stuff. And I think for Quinn, where he can work on trying to be that communicator person and try to, be collaborative and build those relationships. And that was what he said, he coaching was about for him, was building these relationships and being collaborative and focusing on that. And, having someone who can help him with not only the X's and O's stuff, which again, I don't know how well his X's and O's stuff, we'll learn about that, but just someone who's kind of been in between that AHL, NHL, and, knows what to get a guy from the AHL to the NHL, especially where the Sharks are going to have a lot of guys who are going to be trying to make that push. So, I specifically asked him about what in the NCAA, like all of his time in the NCAA, because he did spend, a lot of time working in college. How's that going to help your younger guys, like your Eklunds, your Bordeleaus, your Weisblatts? And, for him, he talked about where, being 22 and playing in college and being 22 and playing in NHL, you still go through a lot of the same issues, right? Where we're all 22 at one time, and there's still a lot of stuff you're dealing with outside of just your job or school or whatever. And, I think sometimes it's easy for us to lose the sight that, yes, these hockey players are also have lives outside and they do stuff outside and they have to go, think about, I talked to William Eklund a couple weeks ago. He's a 19-year-old kid who's literally getting ready to move across the world to play hockey. And, I was talking, he's got to get his driver's license. He's got to, find a place to live and like this and that, and, get all that stuff taken care of. And there's something, that we've all moved. We've all done that type, we have, I've never moved. I mean, I moved a lot being a military kid, but like, I could imagine moving across the country by yourself, or across the world by yourself and having to deal with that stuff. So I think, having that, like, college kids, moving across the country to go to college and stuff. And, we've seen with these, college kids where it's like, you're going to play college, you'll actually on Thursday's episode, I have Daniel G, and he talks about like how these colleges, especially for hockey, where they're doing such a great job of not only preparing kids to play college, but preparing them for the pros by everything is so hockey oriented. And, like you have the facilities, you have the weight rooms, and you have, of course you're going to school at the same time, but like everything is kind of so hockey oriented. And, I think for him coming from that background of, he knows what these 21, 22, 23-year-old kids are going through. And again, I thought David Quinn really presented himself well today. I thought he made all the right answers and stuff. My one question is, what is a team that plays in structure but also has freedom? That was because he said it twice, and I've been trying to wrap my brain around it because it doesn't make sense, right? I think if I had to guess, I think they want to try to, of course they're going to have their structure and they're going to have their system that they're going to run, but he also wants guys to hopefully have some freedom to make mistakes and not be punished for it as much. And that was kind of the thing that we heard about his time in the Rangers, where, you play within the system, but have freedom to make choices. That's what I'm hoping, at least. Freedom to have to make choices in the system, and we'll see how that works out. We got plenty of time before training camp. And if I get a chance, I'm going to ask him about like what that actually means. That's my next question for David Quinn. So hopefully he'll have some availability at some point here. But, and then kind of the other big thing that he talked about was, how excited he was to work with Mike Grier. And, we know the connection that they have, going to school together, or not going to the same school. They work together, they're both at the Rangers. Granted they were slightly separated, but, and when we talked about, his playing with the young kids, his thing with playing with the young kids, and, apparently, he talks about that earning it thing, right? Where, yeah, you have Lafreniere and you have these guys who are, second overall picks, and they've kind of been given things, but then how do you go to, Panarin and say, hey, I got to let this kid play power play, stuff like that. So I think that's where he's going to have to kind of find the balance. And hopefully, knowing that, yes, you want to win games right now, but in the long run, getting your William Eklunds, your Thomas Bordeleaus, et cetera, getting these guys up to speed as quick as you can is going to be your easiest way to get the Sharks playing competitive hockey again. So, yeah, like I said, I'm interested. We're gonna next thing we're talking about is his potential coaching staff, and then kind of some other news and nuggets that kind of came out from today. But before we get to that, when you guys are done listening to this, make sure you guys go check out the Locked On NHL show. They're going through, I know they talked about like the Eastern Conference prospects. So I assume they're going to be talking about the Western Conference prospects coming up soon. Of course, the fallout from the Tkachuk trade that happened over the weekend. So when you guys are done listening to this, make sure you guys go check out the Locked On NHL show wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can check them out on YouTube as well. All right, so we did have some news and notes, of course, for today. Sasha Chmelevski heading to the KHL, and he kind of was stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? Where he's that classic kind of tweener guy right now, and he's clearly too good for the AHL. And I don't know if he's going to win a spot on the opening night roster, especially with how much depth they added. Mike Grier added over the offseason. So he's going to go play in the KHL. The Sharks still have his rights. So if he's done playing the KHL and he wants to come back and play for the Sharks, they still have his rights. So hopefully he goes over there and dominates. He's going to, one, make more money, two, get more playing time. So good luck to Sasha. I always liked you. Too bad Logan Couture stole your only goal. Poor Sasha. So so good luck to Sasha. Other kind of news, Kevin LeBanc will not be bought out, which again, I didn't see that coming. I think his trade value is too low right now to do anything, especially with, nearly a $5 million cap hit. He's not you're not getting anything if you trade him. So I assume they're going to have him come in and play, and then hopefully you can build up his value a little bit this year, and then kind of see what happens going into the trade deadline or going into this next offseason. So he's back on, he's been practicing, and, apparently he's feeling good and he's ready for the upcoming season. Grier also talked about Radim Shimmick, and he's basically said if his agent wants to try to force a trade, come see him, but he hasn't heard anything from it. So we'll see. Because just a reminder, Shimmick said at the end of the season, he basically told a local paper in Czechia that he felt like he was lied to between management, who said we need to play younger players, and coaching, who said we need to play younger players, but they both said the other one is like go into your mom and go into your dad, and they're both telling you different. Anyway, so he felt like he was lied to about that, where he understands if you're going to play younger players, but just tell him the truth. So we'll see. The Sharks still need to move a contract to get Ferraro. Grier did say Ferraro is going to get done at some point here soon. Not to worry about that, but I mean, you have three goalies, so one of them has to get traded. You kind of have a little bit of a logjam in the defense now, especially with all the new signings. So somebody's got to go, and especially before the season starts. Yeah, it'd be best to try to clear that up, especially, again, you still have to sign Mario Ferraro at some point. So I'll be very interested to see in the Ferraro contract. If it's a RFA, here's a couple years, let me kick the can down the road and we'll take a look at this again in a couple of years, or if they just try to lock him up long term right now. So we'll see with Ferraro. We'll see. We'll see with him. So other kind of stuff too. Someone asked if the Sharks, if Grier and David Quinn had thought about changing up the coaches, or not the coaches, the captains and the alternate captains, and they quickly both said no, they weren't going to do that. That's not going to happen. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see. I'd be shocked if we saw Logan Couture get his captaincy stripped. that would be wow. If Grier and Quinn come in and just stripped it, I would be shocked by that. So, and the other thing is too, they're going to be looking. Of course, they now have to hire some assistant coaches. The big news Kevin Weeks talked about was Warsofsky, who's apparently he interviewed for the head coach role. Of course, didn't get it, but I guess now he's in consideration for one of the assistant coaches. And I think that'd be a home run hire where you're getting a guy who, like I said, already interviewed to be a head coach in the NHL. He's performed well with the AHL. Clearly, they won the Calder last year. He was on their team, was one of the coaches when Rocky Thompson was the head coach. He's, took over for him. I think, again, that guy who knows how to get guys ready from the AHL to the NHL, that winning breeds winning kind of formula. And I'm really interested to see how, Quinn, Warsofsky, and then, John McCarthy and his coaching staff, how they all kind of work together and try to get a blueprint in place for these guys who are going to be pushing, going to be playing on the coup this year, but then eventually going to be pushing for NHL ice time sooner rather than later. So another name that kind of also popped up was Daniel Gallio, I believe. Or David Oliver, sorry. I don't know where I got Daniel. That's another name that popped up. So if these guys get hired, we'll kind of dive into them and look at their past and how they're going to be able to help the Sharks and kind of, that situation. So, I believe that was it for everything Sharks related. So we're here. We have a coach. We have a general manager. Who would have thought? Not I. Huh? Look at us. Look at us. Look at us. But that's going to do it for me today. Like I said, I have one more interview this week. I've got Daniel G from Elite Prospects. He does a Michael Fisher. We talk about Michael Fisher and kind of do a nice Michael Fisher profile. A very, very, very tantalizing prospect, and very much a Brandon Coe. He's got a lot of tools. If you can put the toolbox together, you might have found gold type of prospect. So that'll be probably coming out on Thursday. I've got some other interviews lined up. I don't want to kind of mention yet, but take a peek on social media this week, and I'll probably have a little teaser for one of them coming up. So that's going to be it. Thank you guys, of course, for making us your first listen. You can find the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Post all of our work there. You can also listen Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, all those places. YouTube, go ahead and subscribe there. All the shows come out a little early on YouTube, so you can check that out as well. We always do premieres of them, so you can kind of watch them with everybody. You guys can there's plenty of people talking in the comments. You can make fun of me. You can look at my little man, the Razor Crest Lego there. I'm supporting the Scouching t-shirt today, so. And so go check that out. Of course, make sure you guys listen to the Locked On NHL show. Of course, all the other Locked On shows now that football season's here. Locked On Niners, Locked On Dolphins. Kyle Krabs does a great job over there for you fans of the Dolphins. All those places. So, follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. And again, I'll be back on Thursday with the interview with Daniel G. Bye, friends.